Hi everyone, I'm Zuzka, the Craftsy Penguin. Thank you for joining me today. This time, this little update is basically tips and tricks for the Chocolatière Mitts. These are from a pattern from the Knitting and So On blogspot, and I mentioned in my previous video that they are a bit tricky. So I decided to share a few of the tricks that I used while making these, because I had to adapt the pattern, firstly because my yarn was thicker than the recommended, so I had to use a bigger hook. So there was one adjustment connected to that. And then there is a few tricks that you possibly need to know when you decide to make these. So let's see. First thing that I had to do was making fewer repeats of the pattern in this direction and in this direction as well, because the yarn is thicker. So originally there is supposed to be 3 of the waves in the mitt, and I did just 2 of them. So instead of doing the starting, you're starting this pattern with the thumb. So after doing the thumb, which is pretty easy, and I adjusted the amount of stitches in the thumb section as well, and the amount of rows in the thumb section as well for the thickness of the yarn. I just had to try the size on my thumb, you know, to see where it fits. So I adjusted that, but that was no problem. I adjusted the length of the base chain, which is along this side. You need 12 stitches for every repeat of the pattern. So for 3 you would need 36. I did just 24 for 2 repeats. So far so good. That was easy. And then I made the first one basically going along with the pattern as it was. The trick starts with the second mitt, basically. What I had to do with the thicker yarn again was reduce the number of rows here around the thumb. So I made just, you know, first row technically is the purple one. So there's like a 0 row there, that's the chain, and then the first row is the purple one there. The original pattern has just 2 colors. I had 3, so I wrote myself a little help here with, I'm not sure that's gonna focus, colors and numbers of rows, so that I wouldn't get lost in the repeat of the colors. But then, you know, row 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, 7, 8 and 9, and 10 and 11, yes, that's 11 rows. And then I stopped this part around the thumb, because you're going like this with the first part. And originally this part is supposed to have 15 rows. I'm checking on the web page. So I made it smaller than the pattern suggests, but with the thicker yarn it works as intended, as you can see. And then the third part of the mitten is actually the part where you continue on one side and you do as many rows as you need to wrap around the hand and join it there. So you can see there my repeat of colors mirrors in here. So that was all well. It worked as intended. Only thing that was caused by the reduced number of rows is that it made this little wedge in here while joining, and I could join it closer, but it would be too tight around the hand, and the recipient of the mitt decided that I should leave it as it is. I offered to fill this with, you know, the contrast color, purple in this case, to just fill the wedge and make it straight. That would be pretty easy, I guess, with a few increases, decreases, or stitches of different length. But it works as well like this. So I did that, and then I started a second mitt, and there it starts to get interesting, because the pattern tells you that if you're making the other mitt, you just need to mirror this basic repeat of the pattern along here and leave those increases around the thumb as they are. And when you work on it and you read the pattern and you crack the code, basically, you come to realize that in this part the pattern makes you add a half of the, and then, well, half of the repeat of the waves pattern. So you, going along the pattern, you do your repeat of waves, and then you do half of a wave as part of those increases around the thumb. And then there are some random increases on the top part. But this whole shtick starts around, not around, exactly at row 6, where you start making this half a wave on the increase part of the mitt around the thumb. And if you do that as described in the pattern and only change the wave direction on the second mitt, you get to the start of the increases, and suddenly it asks you to do the opposite way of making the wave, you know. So one half of the wave, one side of the wave, ends with a decrease. And if there would be another wave, it would again start with a decrease and end with a decrease. On the other side, it's the same with increases. It ends with an increase, starts with an increase. And if you go along the pattern and you've just changed this part for the second mitt, you end with a decrease here, and then it asks you to increase and do the opposite half of the wave, which doesn't make any sense. And you would realize while making that something weird's going on. So this is what's going on. So what I would recommend is changing for the other mitt, changing the direction of the wave as you're asked to do, and then doing the increases around the thumb in a mirrored way. I would say reading the instructions from the end of the row to the start of the row, which I hope that makes sense if I say it like that. I didn't do it exactly like that. I just figured out that I need to do the correct half of the wave pattern where it needs to be. So I did my waves, then the half that needed to be there, and then the increased numbers that are around the thumb in each row. I still have to say I haven't found a rhyme or reason in those, but they work. They work. It makes this shape very well. So my tip for this is read the rows, basically starting with row 6, read the rows from the back to the front, if that makes sense. I believe that's the easiest way that you can conquer this pattern and make two mitts that are mirrored and not both, you know, one way and the other. Because you can do that. There is no issue with that. But if you do two of the same, you get this connection of the wraparound part with the base part. You get one of them inside the hand and the other one on the outside of the hand, on the back of the hand. So with regular yarn that is demanded in this pattern and with the right hook size, you wouldn't get this wedge there, so that wouldn't be visible. But if you made, color repeat that gives you this kind of mirrored, colors, you could see that, and it might get annoying. So For me, it wouldn't work. So I had to figure out how this is done and how best to make it truly mirrored. And yeah, this is how it's done. Basically, for the other mitt, read each row of the pattern mirrored from the back to the start, from the end to the start. I hope I'm telling you this understandably. I hope I'm explaining this well enough so that you can understand how it's done and so that you can adapt the pattern to your yarn, to the size of mitts that you need and all of that. So yeah, starting row 6, be careful, do the mirroring as it's supposed to go. Also, I mentioned in my last video, and be careful about this, what it's preparing you to do with these half wave increases and decreases. At row 10, you are suddenly making one more repeat of the wave pattern. And there is no note about it, there is just a change in that one number. Because the pattern has this, section A 3 times. So it's A3 and the rest of the pattern for that row. And then it's B3 and the rest of the row and all of that. So suddenly in row 10 of this thumb, around the thumb part, it's part 2 in the pattern, suddenly there is A4 and B4 in each of those rows. So careful about that. Keep your eyes peeled, because there you're starting to make one more wave or one more hill or valley on each side of the mitt. So yeah, careful about that, and I wish you all of the possible success with those mittens. I love them. So I guess this is sort of a, it's not even love-hate relationship. I wrote that on my Instagram, but it's not true. I love the pattern, but you need to be careful. You need to dig into it and understand it and adjust it to your needs. So good luck with it, and maybe share your results if you decide to make it. Have a great time, enjoy crafting, enjoy creating, and enjoy the colors. Goodbye!